Ready?
Sure.
I'm Preston,
I'm Simon.
And I'm Ryan.
and our group research project was on Trump, Biden, and campaigning on Facebook in 2020. So before we get into the meat of the research project, you should probably know its humble beginnings. When we first got assigned this project back in September or early October, I believe, um, we didn't really have a goal, and we didn't have a goal for a while because since it was such a vague topic, we didn't really know what we wanted to prove. But all of us knew that Facebook is a bad place for bipartisan politics, so that's what we decided our main hypothesis should be. And we
Yeah,
kind of formulated.
after kind of coming to a general consensus, we kind of had this preconceived notion of, well, the only time you hear about Facebooks and politics is when that distant aunt or uncle posts something that everyone disagrees with. And so we decided that our smart move would be to kind of like examine that bias and see if it has anything behind it, or if it's just kind of another stereotype that gets spread around.
And after that, we kind of started looking for sources about social media and politics and how people kind of feel about it. And we found a bunch of studies that prove that social media is very bad for it, yet everyone continues to participate in social media hatred with politics. And that's very clear whenever a president or a government person tweets or posts anything. But we had to pertain it to Facebook, so we did some more stuff on Facebook.
Moving in, we to a few things we thought about including but didn't. We had discovered a couple sources that, while talking about social media and Facebook specifically, we found a lot of information that was just really general and seemed almost just to be catching sort of like the uh, academic world up on what social media is and its current use. So we didn't find we were sort of hard pressed for some of our sources.
Yeah, some information we did find was, and we wanted to focus on, was engagement with Biden and Trump's political ads and how many people engaged and who engaged with them. And we found some really useful data on that and on how much each party spent on political ads, specifically on Facebook as well.
Which is very useful in helping us figure out another hypothesis we were thinking of was about will Trump and Biden have the same amount of money spent on Facebook? Because we heard, and it's kind of a general consensus, that Biden was spending a lot of money on ads. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that Trump had almost tied with Biden. But then we also figured out, ironically, that Kamala Harris and Pence spent a lot of money on ads. Pence spending 3 to 4 times.
It's quite yeah, it's a big difference.
Hmm.
Yet, if you look at the amount of likes, Kamala has twice as much as Pence does.
Actually, springboarding off that idea, what I know personally what mine is, but what was some of our research that you guys found particularly like surprising? I definitely was surprised to find a study we actually kind of threw in right at the end, the joint one between California, Berkeley, and Chicago, that found that whenever someone receives a piece of information through like text via like a post or newspaper or print or anything, they are a lot less accepting than the same information given to them like orally.
I thought that was very interesting. And it does make sense. It does reflect how people act on the internet rather than in person. Because people will still know who you are on the internet if you have a public profile. But people stereotypically tend to be more aggressive with their political beliefs.
Mm.
So it makes you wonder if the social media hadn't existed, and we still had the same political climate today, how would people treat others in their political beliefs instead of outright banning them from their entire life if all they had to do was just watch speeches?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but I've actually been learning on my own a little bit about old election practices, and people actually used to have election fairs where there'd be like an entire, almost like carnival, and like very, very public voting of putting paper ballots into boxes. Before we moved on, I just wanted to just check in. Ryan, did you have anything that was particularly interesting to you?
I think one of the more interesting things was if you look at it, a large majority of people find politics on social media extremely frustrating, but yet it's still such a huge thing. It's weird.
You guys remember
Okay.
when presidents went door to door and were personable? Just that.
Well,
Not
I
really.
sure don't. I don't think I'm that old.
um,
I guess moving on to, I think, what could be our last point here, and a very good question, policy actions that could be taken regarding our research issue. Now, I mean, there's not a ton of, per se, uh, governmental action that could be taken in regarding Facebook limitations and restrictions. I think that'd be a bit of an overreach, but like, do you think it'd be like what changes would be made about this even? Is that something Facebook would have to moderate in itself, or do you think they'll have to be like forced by governmental hand?
I think um, the government should continue doing what they're doing currently and not take action because it brings into the question, should the First Amendment be violated of people who spread hate speech or lie about things on the internet? Because yes, it's wrong morally, but it is still their First Amendment. I think the government should step in when it gets super violent, like the amount of times I've seen threats on someone's life on the internet, whether ironically or unironically, is when I think the business should step in. But I think the government should only step in if the business, the platform like Facebook or Twitter, is violating the rights of the poster, which gets into a giant other conversation. But moral of the story is I don't think the government should do anything about this. It just shows the political climate that is today.
Brian, did you want to speak on that at all, or?
Yeah, I would agree. I think if the government steps in and gets involved, that just opens way too many cans of worms and
Mm.
what is legal for them to do and what's not.
Personally, I kind of have the sentiment that uh, I just, when I was finding the Facebook ad spending numbers, I was kind of shocked with that, and I think it'd be smart to introduce some sort of restriction on exactly how much you can spend on a campaign. And I think that without moderating Facebook's platform for them, I think that would actually do a lot to help with a lot of the issues we take up in our research.
I guess you do bring up an interesting point, Simon, about the government intervening in the amount of ads
Hmm.
or amount of money that can be spent on ads. I guess one policy action that the government could take away from our research project is what can be in a political ad. Because 2020 and 2016 were basically all attacking the other candidate.
That is a
There's
really good
even
point. Yeah.
the entirety of both debates were just attacking the other candidate. And there's a little bit of hearsay here and there about what they're going to do, but it was all just the same stuff they've been saying for the past year.
Mhm.
So I actually do think, saying that out loud, that the government should intervene on that because
Yeah.
that leads to like a spiraling staircase or a domino effect of the people will continue to act like they are currently in social media because if the freaking president and president-elect of the country can't stop attacking each other, personally.
then the political rift in general in the country isn't going to get better, and people will just still keep accusing the other side of deepening the rift when it's kind of just not the people. It's really just the campaigns, I feel.
Exactly. They're definitely not setting a good standard for the next election.
I think that is a really good point to end on, but I don't want to deprive Ryan. Do you have any closing comments you want to add?
No, not really. I think, yeah, that's a great place to end it on.
Okay.
I just think before we actually end it, there's something else I want to add, kind of which is essentially our conclusion, is
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think, and I assume you guys are going to agree with this, that presidents that are running for, or candidates that are running for office should not personally attack everyone they don't like and everyone that's not part of their political party. Because they're going in office for one of the biggest countries in the world and in history. They have a lot of responsibility. People should be able to have more confidence in who they put their vote towards than just he's not the other guy.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think it's really hard to argue that you shouldn't be able to address your opponent at all, but it is something that they certainly need to be much more aware of than they currently are.
Or if they are still going to attack each other, at least bring it more on policy instead of like
Yes.
what they had for breakfast this morning or how they eat their freaking chicken. And kind of keep family out of it too, unless they're politically involved. But that's a bunch of different stuff that this topic, research topic, does not cover.
Yeah. I mean, overall, what was your guys' impression of the project? You just like feel that the three of us and what like we are more informed at least of how kind of this stuff works now.
I think I am. I have a more
Yeah,
deeper
I would agree.
understanding of it.
All right. Well, it has been great. This is Simon.
This is Preston.
And this is Ryan.
We're signing off.
Thanks for listening.